Happy Memorial Day weekend. It's great to see you all. I just want to read a little bit for you guys out of Psalms. Ben had a really great word for us last week about vision and about how great God's vision is for us and how we really have to grab hold and stand firm and be strong in that vision. And I think he had us reading out of Psalm 32, and I was just kind of continuing to read. And, as I was going through my week, I had some thoughts saying like, oh, well, maybe your vision's not really that important. Does God really care about your vision, and everything else that's going on? And, yes, he does. He cares about each of us so much and cares about our vision. Each of us so individually. It's so great. So I just want to read a little bit about how good God is in his words. This is from Psalm 33, starting in verse 4. For the word of the Lord is right and true. He is faithful in all that he does. The Lord loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of his unfailing love. By the word of the Lord the heavens made, their starry host by the breath of his mouth. He gathers the waters of the sea into jars. He puts the deep into storehouses. Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the people of the world revere him. For he spoke and it came to be. He commanded and it stood firm. The Lord foils the plans of the nations. He thwarts the purposes of peoples. But the plans of the Lord stand firm forever, the purposes of his heart through all generations. So I just thank you, God, that your word says that you do have a plan for us, God, that you have a hope and a future, God. That your plan says that you love us unconditionally, God, that you forgive every iniquity, God. Your plans are good, that you are a good God, that you love your people, God. So we just thank you, Lord. We thank you for the vision that you have on all of our lives, God. We thank you for how great you are, God. We thank you for future plans, God. I thank you, God, that the past doesn't define us, God, but you are always looking ahead and looking towards the future, God. So we thank you, Lord. We bless your name. Thank you, God.
Who is this King of glory that pursues me with his love and haunts me with each hearing of his softly spoken words? My conscience a reminder of forgiveness that I need. Who is this King of glory who offers it to me? Who is this King of angels, oh blessed Prince of Peace, revealing things of heaven and all its mystery? My spirit's ever longing for his grace in which to stand. Who is this King of glory, Son of God and Son of Man? His name is Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord Almighty, King of my heart, King of glory. Who is this King of glory, with strength and majesty, wisdom beyond measure, oh gracious King of kings, Lord of earth and heaven, the creator of all things. He is the King of glory, he's everything to me. His name is Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord Almighty, of glory. His name is Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord Almighty, King of my heart, King of glory. This is King of glory, that pursues me with his love, and haunts me with each hearing of a softly spoken word. My conscience a reminder of forgiveness that I need. Who is this King of glory, who offers it to me? Who is this King of angels, blessed Prince of Peace, revealing things of heaven and all its mystery. My spirit's ever longing for his grace in which to stand. Who is this King of glory, Son of God, Son of man? His name is Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord Almighty, King of my heart, King of glory. His name is Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord Almighty, King of my heart, King of glory. Lord of earth and heaven, the creator of all things. He is the King of glory, he's everything to me. His name is Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord Almighty, King of my heart, King of glory. His name is Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord Almighty, King of my heart, King of glory.
you have for me. There's no end to the affection you have for me. There's no end to the affection you have for me. Burns for you, burns for you, and my heart burns for you, and my heart burns for you.
His name is Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord Almighty, King of my heart, King of glory. His name is Jesus, precious Jesus, Lord Almighty, King of my heart, King of glory.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, yes. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, we live for you, yeah. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one that could ever sing. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Yeah. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Yes, you are. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Yeah. Jesus, the only one that could ever sing. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Oh,
I will put my trust in you, oh, and I will not be shaken.
There is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes and wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Holy, holy. Holy, holy are you, Lord.
Thank you, God. It's so funny. The last song we sang, I hadn't heard it in a long time, but I went right back to where the first time I heard it, the Third Day song, and I was like, man, what I thought was important back then, just, it really wasn't that important. And the things, I was standing there and I could remember the things the first time I heard that song, because obviously that song's anointed, it's good, it gets you excited, but I thought the stuff that I was fighting then, my vision was like this big. And to me, that's like an everyday thing. It's no big deal now. And it's amazing how God can take you back to that moment and then bring you right forward, and you kind of see, wow, I actually have made some progress, and we have started moving forward in our journey. And it's so good when he does that. It's encouraging to me. It's encouraging to me. I wanted to do things a little bit different this morning, and I've got a little bit of a word to speak, very small, short, and then I wanted to pray together. And we, as some of the leaders, are fasting in some way, shape, or form for a week or so for some clarity and some vision, and for church, and I've got some stuff for business and family and for Azari, and it's always good to pray and fast and to have that. And the first night that I did it, I'm not fasting food, I'm just setting aside a specific time to just pray. And for me, that's much more effective than being hungry all day, not really praying, but just being frustrated that I can't eat what I want to eat, but not really taking the time. So I've been doing it at night once everything's calmed down in the day. And the first time I started praying, I only spent about a half hour. It was so good. And I felt like I couldn't write down fast enough what God was hammering on me about. And it kind of woke me up like, oh man, we really corporately, we need to be praying more together, and we need to sort of renew our understanding of how important it is to pray together, to pray individually. I'm sure you all pray, and I'm not saying you don't, but to me, like setting aside that time, there were several things that he hit me with that just is sort of shaping my whole worldview again. And I thought my worldview was pretty good. It was shaped. I know what I'm doing. So I want to pray together. And I'm not sure what that looks like. I'm not even sure what we're supposed to pray for. But we're going to do that at the end of the service. I just saw a picture of us kind of around here. Maybe we'll have Josh just playing acoustically. I'm not sure. But just coming together and agreeing over some things. Specifically for State College, for Key Church. But what brought me to it was when we first heard that song, what I was really crying out, we were in the upper room. Not the upper room, but we used to have a space called the upper room. Cool if I was in the upper room. And I was praying, and we were praying that God's presence would come to State College. And it did in certain waves. And so when we were standing here just a minute ago with the song, I felt like that was one of the things we should be praying for, is that a hunger again for his presence to come to State College. So I want to do that corporately. We'll do it after I preach a little bit first. So worship team, you can be done. I'm going to give announcements this morning, unless, Selena, you feel like you need to. Thank you, guys. So I'm going to be brief this morning, and I do want to pray together. But I wanted to share exactly what God has been teaching me up until this morning, and then I mastered it, clearly. So, but I felt like I was supposed to share it with you guys. And all week, it has a lot to do with this, the praying and the fasting that I'm doing right now. And I keep getting this word failure. And I think, oh, this is terrible. Why am I could see it in front of my face, failure. And so I'm praying and I'm rebuking that. Like, I rebuke that failure or whatever that is. And God said, no, there's a reason why you have that. And so he says, you hold on to your failures in everything that you do. And I said, wait a minute. I said, that can't be right. And he said, you need to tell the people that they use their failures. The picture I got was, everybody knows Lord of the Rings and Schmeagol, right, with the ring. And I kind of saw a picture of me just holding on to, it's my precious, my failure. Well, this is, I didn't do good at this time, so I can't push here. Or, God failed me this time, so blah, blah, blah. When he showed me that picture, I'm thinking, dear Lord, if you ask anybody on the planet, the most heathen person on the planet, they would say, do not hold on to your failures, right? God has not called us to hold on to your failures. So then God said to me, he said, look at the story of Peter. We would all think Peter is Jesus' right-hand man, right? I mean, there's a couple other dudes, but he was his right-hand guy. I mean, if you look at Peter's, even just the segment of his life when he was around Jesus, he was kind of a failure, right? Nobody agrees with that? I mean, we can start the beginning where Jesus told him to get into the boat, and then there's a storm, and he's crying out, God, why would you bring us into this storm? So his faith failed him just like literally a couple hours before that. Jesus is healing, and he's doing these great miracles, and then all of a sudden, boom, okay. And then when Peter got asked to go out on the water later, and he was out on the water, literally walking on the water, and then lost faith. That would be a failure, I would think. And then he denies Christ, right? 3 times, not just once, but 3 times. So you could classify from a regular standpoint that Peter kind of was a failure, in some ways. I mean, but do we think of Peter as a failure? Do you? No, you think of Peter as, it was Jesus' right-hand dude. Like, this was his buddy, his homie, whatever. And that was because Peter didn't hold on to his failures, right? He didn't hold on to his shortcomings. He didn't hold on to when, he didn't meet what God wanted him. Like, do you think Jesus wanted him to sink as he was coming out onto the water? You think so? Yeah? Probably did. I'm going to use this as a failure example so that people, no. He called him out, right? So that's what I mean. God said to me, he said, you got to stop seeing things through your failures. And I said, okay, Lord, I don't feel like I've, have major failures. He goes, well, stop seeing things through the eyes that you think I failed you. Because remember, one of the fruits of the Spirit is long-suffering, meaning there is going to be times where you have to stand. And that was so, I know as soon as I preach something, I'm going to be hit with it. So the moment I had said that we were living this miracle with Azari, it was good. And then this past week, everything's kind of come to a screeching halt with him. Like, he's not eating well. We might have to take him to Hershey. You might have to stay there with a feeding tube. He's throwing up when he does eat. So stuff is kind of falling apart. And I think that's why God hit me with this failure thing. Like, are you going to say, oh, well, God has failed us then because these things are happening? Are you going to stand and believe in this miracle? And he said, don't look at things through the eyes of your failures or when you think that I fail you. It's a hard thing to do. Like, in the reality, it is a hard thing to do, right? People get comfortable holding on. And I've said this before about fear or, anxiety. You get comfortable holding on to that mess. But for me, it was failure. And I've said that word a bunch. Oops. So I told you I was going to be brief. This is because I know we're supposed to pray, and I saw a picture of you taking what you thought was a failure and laying it down. Because God hasn't called us to that, right? God hasn't called us to this failure. God hasn't called us to walk in that, holding your failure like that. But I know, me personally, in my life right now, I had a really good talk with Dad this morning. He called me and in between feeding kids, and he goes, have you read the story of, he had no idea what I was going to preach on. Have you read the story of the Israelites lately? And I said, well, I mean, I know the story. He goes, do you know that for 2,000 years, they believed that there was a promised land for them? And I said, wow, and for 2,000 years before they entered the promised land, they were able to keep that vision alive. Nobody lived necessarily that full 2,000 years to be like, okay, this is the guy that holds the vision. But they passed it on. They passed it down, right? And I said, well, that's really good, Dad. We're standing in this miracle. We're trying not to believe, the lies of the enemy that the doctors have failed or God has failed us with Azari. And he goes, yeah. He goes, and here's the other thing you need to do. And again, remember, he didn't know that I was going to preach this. He goes, how many times when the Israelites got right there do you think they failed? Remember, right up against the Red Sea, why'd you bring us out here? We'd rather be in captivity. That would be a bit of a failure, right? Like they failed there. Or why'd you bring us out here? We need water. They had to strike the rock. Or why'd you bring us in? There's giants in the land. Why would you bring us up against Jericho? And so Dad didn't know this, and he's saying this to me this morning. He's like, you need to be at peace with the process. Stop looking back to those failures. Stop looking back to, whatever it is, and just be at peace in the process. He said, and know that it's not easy. I mean, you have to stand in that faith. So as he hit me with that, I was like, he asked me, what do you have to preach this morning? I said, it's about failure. He's like, don't, just get up there and talk for a few minutes and then wait and see what the Lord says. I said, Dad, that's definitely not what I want to be doing. I have a full message prepared. He goes, no, don't do that. So me trusting Dad, I said, okay, I won't. And so I know that I've sort of burnt through this, but I know we're supposed to pray together this morning. And I may not even have to talk about failure. I'm not even sure. I don't care at this point. I wanted to get that out so that you have something to pray towards. But I feel like we're supposed to pray together. And I think it's going to be a little uncomfortable for a minute, but that's okay. Because I know our church right now is in a process, right? And maybe you're not in the same process that I'm in, but I'm in a process in life right now where I have to stand and believe that miracle. Stand and believe for Azari. Stand and believe even when stuff seems rough, that God is going to do what he said he's going to do. Right? It's what I said before. It's the Daniel in the lion's den thing in the middle of the night. Are you still going to trust God? Are the lions going to wake up? Is God going to continue this miracle? When the Israelites were walking through the Red Sea, is God going to continue this, or in the middle of it are the waves going to come crashing down? But the enemy, and the word says that we don't battle against flesh and blood, the enemy loves to take and start chirping in your ear. He has no authority. You understand that? And that's where I kind of got fired up this week when I was praying, even something about Azari. Like, he has no authority over Azari's life. The only authority he has is that mental thing that I or Av or, we give him that little bit of ground. And that got me fired up to pray. So, are you ready to pray? It's hot as heck up here. I am so excited for next week. So would you stand up with me?